Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 11th installment of the Senior Leadership Insights series, sponsored by the Graduate School and offered in partnership with the Department of Chemistry. This series was created and developed by a group of volunteers from the Graduate School's Board of Visitors, some of whom may be joining us in the audience today. My name is Melissa Bostrom, and I am the Assistant Dean for Graduate Student Professional Development in the Graduate School. To make the most of our focused time together, I'll address a few logistics up front. We'll begin the conversation with several key questions that we ask each of our featured guests. And after that, we'll welcome questions from the audience. If you'd like to speak, you can use the raise hand option, accessible through the reactions button in the lower right-hand corner of your Zoom window. This session is being recorded, so if you prefer not to appear in the recording, please keep your video muted and share your questions in the chat. With those details out of the way, I'd like now to briefly introduce Dr. Benjamin J. Wiley, Professor of Chemistry and Associate Professor in the Thomas Lord Department of Mechanical Engineering and Materials Science. His research group focuses on making new nanomaterials and exploring applications for them in areas such as medicine, catalysis, plasmonics, and electronics. He is a faculty network member of Duke's Energy Initiative, and from 2019 through 2022, he served as a Basque Connections team leader for the theme, Providing Clean Fuel for the Developing World. In addition to his leadership in his faculty role, he also serves as CTO of Sparta Biomedical, which is creating the first of its kind chemically engineered cartilage platform. And that's just one of the 4 startups he's involved with. So Professor Wiley, I'll turn things over to you to introduce our special guest today, Dr. Dennis Gilmore.
Thank you, Melissa. Our guest today, Dennis Gilmore, is president of CrossLink Research Consulting, where he provides professional services to startups involved in transforming new technologies into products. Over a career spanning nearly 40 years, he has led the development and commercialization of more than 200 new products and processes for companies such as Royal Dutch Shell and PPG Industries. Most recently, he served as Senior Director for Technology Advancement at RTI. Earlier in his career, he was Executive Director of a technology startup in Dhahran, I might be mispronouncing that, Saudi Arabia. Dennis has extensive experience with international joint venture formation and operation across functions and countries. Students, you may know Dr. Gilmore as someone who responds to your questions when you pose a question on Ask a Blue Devil or reach out over the Duke Alumni Network. He enjoys mentoring students and has been a wonderful source of advice for many, many Duke students. Dr. Gilmore received his bachelor's from Missouri State University and his PhD in chemistry from Duke University. He's currently a member of the Graduate School's Board of Visitors, and he and his wife, a fellow Duke chemistry alum, were recognized with the Forever Duke Award. It's a pleasure to welcome Dennis Gilmore back to Duke virtually for today's conversation.
Thank you, Ben. What a nice introduction. Very kind.
You deserve it. So please, Dennis, tell us about your background, maybe more about your path and how your path led you to your current role at CrossLink.
Sure, Ben, and good afternoon, everyone. My path, I would call it somewhat traditional. I knew as I was ending my stint in Duke Graduate School that I really wanted to be out in the industrial sector. Certain, if you will, desires were more able to be fulfilled in that direction as opposed to academia. So at that point in my life, I took a leap of faith, joined a small company as a research chemist, and worked for probably 5-7 years as a research chemist at the bench, developing products and technology. But then my interests sort of evolved to, rather than being the sole contributor doing the development, to a leadership position where I could be part of a team, a bigger group of individuals doing development activities, and then eventually a director, from a manager to a director, where the group of individuals went to 60, 70, and then eventually to up to 150 individuals. So for my career, it was all about the technology and getting the technology moved into some sort of viable commercial outcome that was fulfilling individually and of value to the companies that I worked with. Later in my career, after developing that capability. I joined the RTI, as you indicated, and that brought me a little bit back to full circle, I would say, to some extent, where it was more into the applied research, not at a university level at all, but applied research and closer to basic science. And those experiences in a general sense of developing products, applied and basic science, led me to where I am today, where I've started my own company. And it's all about trying to help other individuals early in their career, how to take the technology that they have developed, usually in a university lab setting, and move that technology out to the commercial space in as effective and efficient means as possible. So that's a little bit about my full circle, Ben.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I really like the sound of your position at Crosslink. Is there, could you tell us more about your organization in terms of, is there a PhD level hire in that organization? And if not, maybe what would be the typical day, maybe for a PhD level at RTI?
Okay, very good. In terms of experience for someone leaving graduate school and getting out into, let's say, the industrial research community, a typical day is going to be one that you would have project accountability, project assignments. That day would involve hands-on research, hands-on experimentation, coordination of data acquisition, and then typically early on, the reporting of that information along with your conclusions to your manager, your team lead, et cetera, et cetera. So early on, it's really about something you would feel comfortable with, continuing the research activities in an industrial setting rather than an academic setting. But after a brief exposure to that, brief number of years in that vein, if you will have the vision and hopefully the experiences to be able to guide in your own decision-making process what other roles you will fill in your career. And a career is a long time frame. It will involve many different positions across that entire time frame. And you will have probably after 5 years, enough understanding so as to choose, hey, I want to be over in this direction that might be more manufacturing technology, or I want to be over in this direction, which might be more business leadership or sales and marketing, as an example. So your days will change based on how your roles change. But as you leave graduate school and get out into the industrial setting, it will be very comfortable to you, just in a different space.
Just to switch gears a little bit, what do you see as the value that doctoral training has added to your professional trajectory?
I would perhaps characterize it this way. I would say that all of you who are in graduate school right now, you have spent a long part of your life, a large part of your life learning generally. And as you get into graduate school, learning very specifically in what might be a field of technology that's very interesting to you. And you're going deep into that field of technology to create your own, if you will, unique contributions to that field. The PhD effort itself, as you're going through that, to me, I always felt as if I needed to generate the context as to what that deepness was targeting and how that deep activity fitted into what would be a system or a network or a large enterprise overall. And I think for at least my experience as a PhD student, it was having the ability to seek the relevance, to understand the relevance of the work I was doing and the connection of that work to contributing something worthwhile in society. That was the most significant part of my PhD work. And that learning I took with me in every role that I have taken in my career, how to understand the big picture and the work that I'm doing on any given day, how it fits into the big picture.
Mm-hmm. Beyond research skills, what other skills, experience, or training were important for success in your career?
Yes, I think everyone leaving graduate school is going to be recognized by the outside world as having expertise in whatever your particular field might be. The question of additional skills, it might vary from career path to career path, but generally speaking, I would say that you want to have very good communication skills, soft skills, so to speak. You want to have, as part of those communication skills, very effective listening capabilities. And one of the things that I would say very importantly on the communication side is that as a scientist, you will be early on, perhaps in a community, working with other scientists where the language, the terms are all familiar, and you'll be able to express yourself in a communication mode that's very understandable to those around you because of their background. But as you experience other roles in your career, take positions where the mix in the audience is individuals that might not even have a technical background, you have to learn how to communicate effectively in the terms and the language of those other leaders that aren't necessarily trained in your field. And developing that skill and that capability to communicate important information effectively to others is, I think, one of the most significant things to try to develop and hone as you're working through graduate school and then out into your career as well. I would say, Ben, sort of as a follow-on to that, if I had the wisdom earlier on when I was in graduate school that I have now, I would have probably looked at graduate school and the university setting as a time where I could have picked up additional skills such as business skills or such as legal skills, such as patenting, not to be deep in those areas, but to have more understanding about those fields, about those skills, if you will, and how they could help round out what would be my ability to more effectively and more earlier on be effective at communicating those business matters or legal matters to other individuals. But probably my biggest regret would be something along the lines of not taking more diverse courses in graduate school and instead just focusing on the going deep with technology that I was involved in.
Besides the communication skills and the other courses, what other things can students do so they say they'd like to work in similar areas as you have? Is there anything else they could do to better prepare?
Yeah, I would say that, and I alluded to this in describing a typical day, and it's all about projects. When you're initially leaving academia and moving out into, let's say, the industrial setting or even the government sector as well, you'll be responsible for a portfolio of projects. I, over time, realized that being an effective project leader is not necessarily a slam dunk. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone is built for that, so to speak. And as I look at individuals today that are going through graduate school experiences, one of the things I speak to is try to pick up some project management capabilities, some leadership capabilities in your experience. Lead a small team, even take through, as Melissa can indicate, through the professional development capabilities that exist at Duke. Take some project management courses that allow you to be better equipped so that when you do leave graduate school, you've got some skills in project leadership, project management that are going to be versatile for any number of situations that you'll be in during your career. So I would, in addition, I mentioned legal, lawyer, patenting, some background there, business. So if you could pick up a couple of business courses in basic marketing or customer value proposition, and then overall, what would be project management skills. That would be well-rounding and I think valuable long-term.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I think that ends the last of our so-called, I guess, formal questions. And at this point, shall we open it up to the audience, Melissa, to see if anyone would like to volunteer a question to Dennis.
Yes, that would be perfect. So I know we have a number of students who are on the call with us today. We want to really encourage you students to ask questions of our senior leaders on these calls. And as a little incentive for you, we can offer you a $15 Duke Dining gift card for the first 3 Duke students who ask questions on audio and video. So with that said, you're still welcome to put your questions in the chat if you like, but if you would like that added incentive, we'd love to have you on camera to ask questions today. You can use that raise hand function on the reactions button in Zoom. Hazel.
Hi, Lisa. Yeah. Hi,
Hey.
Dennis. I'm a postdoc at Amgen. I already graduated from Duke. I'm an alumni. So one question I got after I started work is like people keeps telling me, hey, you should increase your visibility, make a presence. But like I'm still don't understand how that visibility could translate into something that are really useful or impactful for me. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Oh, yes, I would say visibility, and this is, think of it as you're in a community of fellow scientists or business participants in the roles that you're in, and your visibility is both within that team, but also representing that team and your work at other functions within a company. And it's very, very common within companies, for instance, that you'll be required to report out your work that you would have accomplished as a team representative or as an individual contributor. So part of your visibility is reporting that out effectively, and helping create some recognition, wider recognition within the community, within the company, on the importance of your work and how that work can benefit the customers of your company or benefit the company more generally overall. So visibility internally is one function, but also early in my career, I had the opportunity to have visibility outside the company by participating in what would be symposiums or professional society meetings, becoming an individual that was a co-chair of 2 or 3 different society events, international events, and developing visibility within the community at large, outside of the company. And then over time, of course, you'll have, as your technical work progresses or your business work progresses, you'll have the opportunity to write that work up into some form of publication or some form of presentation. So all of those forms of visibility are, I think, there for you to pursue, but it would start with internally within the company or your organization, how you can demonstrate and communicate effectively the value of your work to the overall enterprise and the objectives of the enterprise. And to do that in very clean, clear, and convincing manner. I hope that was helpful.
How about on LinkedIn or other social media, Dennis? Do you have any advice to take advantage of these days to get a kind of kickstart your visibility?
Yeah, I'm a dinosaur. LinkedIn was nowhere around when I first started. But yeah, LinkedIn, I would say you could look at that as a forum for professionals, and there may be some arguments out there around that. But if you look at LinkedIn and want to become a little bit more visible, you can do that as an individual and post and communicate effectively there. And many people do that perhaps in the influencer mode. But also there are groups within LinkedIn that you can join. And those are groups that might be more akin to professional societies, like a group of analytical chemists or a group of biotechnology marketing individuals. So the groups are so specialized and so fragmented, but they're large groups. Some of those groups have thousands and thousands of members. And as those of you who have had experience in LinkedIn would know, you can post and communicate to that group in a way that creates visibility. And there are potential HR representatives looking at the various active individuals on LinkedIn to get a sense as to where top talent resides and how to perhaps identify and go after that top talent. So it's in some respects, maybe an indirect way, a little bit of a self-advertisement to the HR talent acquisition folks in that community around the world. I don't know much about the other social media platforms, so I'm not very good. Although Instagram does have good pictures.
Yeah.
How that helps, I don't know.
Dennis, I just want to let you know, I got a private message from one of our attendees saying this is the best advice about visibility I've ever heard. Thank you so much.
Wow. Well, good.
We have a question from the dean. Suzanne, you want to share your question?
Oh, you're going to make me speak. So Dennis, thank you for your advice. And I think you've really touched on this in talking about networking, but I wonder if you have any additional advice for how to build one's professional network, especially here in the Triangle. If one is interested in technology and entrepreneurship, I think there's some unique opportunities here that students might be able to take advantage of, even while they're still students.
Dean Barbour, thank you very much. That's an excellent point. And for students at Duke, and same is true for UNC and NC State and Elon and ECU and NCCU, the local community is a great ecosystem for technology overall and for technology advancement to commercialization more specifically. It's an entrepreneurial environment that we have here. And for students at Duke, and as been indicated, I work a lot with startup companies, not just in the local region, but internationally. And it's terrific experience for you to join some of the local networking forums. So there's a forum called Nucleate that is Nucleate RTP that very specifically focuses on biotechnology in the Research Triangle Park area. And there are other forums like that as well. So reach out. These are student-led organizations or collectives, if you will. Reach out, find them, get engaged. There will be social meetings, but those social meetings will typically be around a networking event where you can meet other individuals that are like-minded, but also meet individuals that have an interest in mentoring, or maybe if you're in the startup space, interest in investing, interest in supporting the technology. So look around, reach out. Duke is fantastic in terms of being in a region where this kind of ecosystem exists, and it's very popular from my exposure to that ecosystem with the students that I bump into. I hope that was helpful.
That is a perfect segue to our next question from Vicky. Vicky, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, thank you so much for your advice, and also for mentioning Nucleate, as I'm also part of the leadership of this company, student company. My question is for somebody who would like to spin out technology out of the lab into, a startup, and you working with startups, what would be the first steps to kind of to prioritize? Let's say you have a small amount of money, like a pre-seed money. What would be the most important first steps to make to succeed in creation of a startup?
Thank you for the question. It's an excellent question, and one that many startups, frankly, don't get right. And if I were providing one piece of advice to a company that's coming out of a university setting, that advice is to do customer discovery and take your small investment that you have, and before you do anything in the laboratory or anything in scale for prototyping, do customer discovery so that you have some validation of your concept and your idea that merits then investment in laboratory work and prototyping. And if you don't find your customer discovery surfacing the need that you think is there, listen, use your skills for listening to what are the needs in that customer segment, because that might trigger in your mind a different spin on what it was that you had originally conceived that can come back into action later on. But the first thing is customer discovery. And the university world has a very terrific partner, I would say, in the form of the National Science Foundation. And the National Science Foundation has a program called I-Core or Innovation Core. And for startup companies coming out of universities, you can apply to the university in many cases, or to a regional university hub in some cases, or potentially to a national program that NSF sponsors. And you can go through a very intense multi-week training session, which is all about how to take technology out of the laboratory at the university and move it into the marketplace. And step number one is customer discovery. And you will do interview after interview after interview until you have validated or you have decided your idea merits no further action. So customer discovery is step number one, and it's the key thing to focus on.
I would just add to that if you can get purchase orders for your idea, even if your product doesn't exist, because a lot of people might say, that's great if it would exist, but to have them actually place an order, which is a contract, a purchase order is simply a contract to pay you upon delivery of the product. That could also give you a sense of like at what price point would they actually be willing to pay for this solution, because you might have a solution that is just out of their range of desirability to pay. Yeah,
Ben, that's a great point. And I would say I've seen in a year about 250 startup companies. And as they go through this customer discovery process, the ones that do that, they describe potentially at some point what their solution to the customer need is. And there will be occasions when the customer will say, if you have that, I will buy it today. And that's a very, very strong sign. So if you can get to that point, that's a validation point. Now you have to worry about how many of those validation points you have, and building a business around one customer is maybe a little bit of a risky thing to do. But if you do enough interviews, you will understand that the market is there, the market is reasonable, you can do market research around that, and that it can justify the start of a business. It's an exciting thing to do.
Terrific. Thank you both for those wonderful nuggets of advice. We might have time for one final question, if somebody wants to raise their hand really quickly. All right, terrific. Well,
if not,
Skylar,
I could
go ahead.
So, okay.
Skylar.
Hi, so I'm Skylar. Thank you, Dennis. My question was more about how someone can get in and just get a taste for the less about like bring your idea to market, but more about how do you get a taste for the different types of companies that are out there. So like applying to internships, and how do you talk yourself up in the internships just to get your foot in the door. I think there's a value in having diverse experiences, and so being able to market yourself to different companies is something that I would appreciate some advice on.
Okay, very good, Skylar. Let me just say that as part of my career, I had an assignment in sales. I had an assignment in marketing. I had an assignment in leading a business as the P&L leader. All of those experiences rounded out certain skill sets and certain knowledge points that overall made it better for me to be a technology director. So I think, Skylar, you're really coming to a question that I answered that question for myself as I went through my career. If you can answer that question early in your career, I think that sets you up for a broader spectrum of opportunities to follow. So to your point, one of the things that exists in this area, the Research Triangle Park area, there are a tremendous number of startup companies in this area. And I would suggest that you reach out to those companies. And the thing about a small company is that if you're brought in as an intern or even as initially an employee, small companies tend to create a diversity in what they ask employees to do beyond what large companies do. And coming into a small company as an intern or as an employee, you will get visibility on a number of different traditional roles and functions very rapidly. And you can use that visibility to learn and to hone skills and maybe refine your own self-direction for your career at an early stage. So how do you get into those positions? As an intern, it's all about applying, and summer internships I know are very popular in this area. RTI and other companies in the Triangle area have internship programs. I would think of not only the scientific side, but also the financial side. So, you know, Fidelity as an example, a summer intern in Fidelity to learn something about a business function or an accounting function. The local technology companies, think about how you can get some experience and some exposure that broadens your scope of understanding so that you can help shape your career early on in your own decision-making process. Okay. Hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and just to add, Skylar, I posted in the chat the NC Biotech funds internships over the summer here in the Triangle, and posts. I post a link to their career site where they have some of those listed.
Yeah, this is a great region for getting experience and exposure.
Well, thank you both so much for those wonderful pieces of advice to Skylar and other students who are on the call with us today. Thank you so much to the audience for being so engaged, keeping it a lively conversation. It's been such a delight to feature Dr. Dennis Gilmore today. Those of you who are students on the call may not know that he has been an audience member at 9 of the 10 previous Senior Leadership Insights conversations, and he's deeply committed to fostering conversations between alumni and students and building relationships. So it's been such a pleasure to put him in front of the camera for today's session when he's been so engaged behind the scenes. I want to also give hearty thanks to Professor Ben Wiley for conducting the interview as a terrific interlocutor today and sharing his own expertise as well. We hope that some of you will join us for our next installment in the series, which will be on February 21st, featuring Dr. Wanda Wallace, Managing Partner of Leadership Forum. Good afternoon to everyone.